Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good morning, everyone. It is Friday, July the 5th, 2024. It is currently 10:04 a.m. Central Time, and I am coming to you live from the Theology Central studio, located right here in Abilene, Texas. Well, did you have a wonderful and happy 4th of July? Did it go wonderful? Was it great for you? I don't know about where you live, but here in Abilene, Texas, we had some fun in Abilene, Texas. Well, it didn't really happen on the 4th of July. It actually happened on the 3rd of July. You see, there was controversy in Abilene, Texas. Lots of controversy because typically where the big citywide fireworks display occurs, it's really close to the zoo. Well, this year, the zoo director was like, nope, not going to happen. Over my dead body, the fireworks, it traumatizes the animals. So you got to take your fireworks display and you got to go packing. You can't do it near the zoo. All right. So everybody was, people who love animals were like, yay. People who don't care were like, that's where it's been for 50 years. I don't care if the animal. Okay. So, you had a little bit of controversy. So they moved the fireworks display near one of the large high schools, not very far from my house, Wiley High School. All right. Not far from my house at all. I probably could be there in 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 7 minutes. All right. Not far. So they had their big fireworks display. And they absolutely 100% started a raging wildfire, okay, is exactly what happened. Now, what's funny is the city had been putting out these ridiculous videos to try to tell everyone no fireworks are to be shot off in the Abilene city limits because we're on a burn ban because, we're in West Texas. This is when all the rain stops and it returns back to desert, okay? I mean, it's 105 degrees and no rain. And yeah, everything, a spark will set off a fire. So they've been telling everyone, no fireworks in the city limits of Abilene. No fireworks in the city limits of Abilene. Do not do any fireworks. You will burn the whole state to the ground. All right. Well, guess what? The city said that. Then they have the big citywide fireworks display. And they start this massive fire. They finally get it under control. It's so ridiculous because on one hand, you can look at what the city of Abilene is telling you not to do. But then they're like, hey, but we've got a permit. We know what we're doing. And then they almost burn the school down to the ground. All the video and pictures of it are hilarious. And of course, all the comments everyone was making me laugh. So that's how things were going here in the Abilene, Texas area. I don't know how things were going where you live. But yeah, that's why. So now it's, the talk of the town because, Abilene's not like some major city. So, yeah, everyone's got opinions about it. And it makes me laugh. So people calling it the great, 4th of July catastrophe. Okay, well, it wasn't that bad. I mean, they got it under control. It could have. I think the reason people are joking so much about it is because it could have literally gotten out of control. I mean, we have a history of having some really bad fires in this area this time of year because things get so dry and you got to be extra careful. And so last night, at least in my neighborhood, which typically sounds like a war zone, there was almost no one. No, I think everyone was afraid. No one wanted to shoot off a firework. Afraid we'll burn everything to the ground. Now there were some larger, area. There's some areas nearby where there obviously some people had large supplies of fireworks where they were going off. I think people were extra cautious last night, so it was much quieter here. I could have actually probably done a broadcast. It was that quiet. Maybe here or there were some things that may have interfered, but for the most part, it was quiet. But I know most of you were out doing whatever you were doing. So hopefully you had a great 4th. So Abilene almost burnt to the ground on the 3rd. It was quiet on the 4th. Well, now it's July the 5th. It's time to move on. Now, remember, we're currently in the middle of a challenge. And that challenge is you're supposed to be listening to live webcast on the Sermons 2.0 app. That's what you're supposed to be doing. And I already realized the mistake I made because we are seeing so many of the broadcasts, especially leading up to the 4th and even today, where it seems to be there's no way to get around it. The idol of patriotism is alive and well. There's a live webcast going on right now. If you go look, you'll definitely notice. It's the largest American flag I've ever seen behind the pulpit. I think is gigantic. Now, I don't know if that's inside a church or if it's inside a college or a high school. If it's not in a sanctuary, okay. If that's in a sanctuary, then that is ridiculous. That is just absolutely ridiculous. But so I wanted to listen to that, but I felt like, I felt like I got things I have to get done, right? So I feel like this is the time to broadcast, so I'm going to broadcast. But you can go, I may go back and try to listen to that sermon. I don't think the sermon was about patriotism. I don't think in any way, shape, or form. It sounded like he was talking about Elijah and, that we need a new generation of Elijahs to rise up, that kind of type of thing. And then he was swirling his coat over his head. I don't know what was going on. It's some kind of youth conference. So I definitely want to kind of keep up. And the main reason I want to keep up with that is I always like to see what the churches think the young people of 2024 need to hear. And what we typically find when we listen to these like youth conferences is it's always just moralism, instead of any actual theology. So that's always very discouraging and depressing. So we may go look at that, but you can go look at that American flag if you so desire. Now, I have a specific goal to accomplish in this broadcast, which I always do. But I'm going to take I've already taken a few detours. Let me take one more detour. All right. One more detour, because right when I was getting ready to go live, I got an email. Oh man, these emails. All right. I get an email and the subject line is final push to our goal. Final push to our goal. And I'm like, oh, okay. I wonder what this is. Final push to our goal. I know it's going to be from a ministry, and I bet you it's going to have something to do with money. I almost guarantee. So I open it up, and of course it has, hi. Oh boy, here we go. I wanted to reach out to you about the Beacon of Hope Matching Challenge as it ends today. Pathway to Victory's mission is to spread the light of God's word and offer hope to those in need. With your support, we can continue sharing the message of faith, love, and redemption. Now, Pathway to Victory is Robert Jeffress. He's the pastor, First Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas, I believe, where they have like a it's like a $250, $300 million, what they call campus. It was crazy. It made news all over the state of Texas when they were building it. It was such big news because they were like millions of dollars to build this thing downtown Dallas. All right. So they're to say they are a rich church would be the understatement, maybe the greatest understatement ever. They have to be one of the wealthiest churches just because of how much money went into just building their quote unquote campus. All right. So and I don't even know how many people attend the thing, but it's a giant church with lots of money. But yet I get an emailing me, and guess what they want me to do? They want me to help donate, because you know what they need? They need $750,000 so that they can broadcast. They need $750,000 to support their 30-minute broadcast that airs Monday through Friday that is nothing more than edited sermons. Hey, they take their sermons, edit them down, and then broadcast them on different Christian radio stations and on the internet 5 days a week, 30 minutes. So you give them, they need to raise $750,000 so they can broadcast 30-minute edited sermon clips. Now, I have a hard time with that Because for $750,000, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you, I guarantee you, I will broadcast 5 to 8 hours a day if you need it. I will broadcast at least minimum 5 hours a day. $750,000, I'll do 8 hours a day. I'll broadcast 8 hours a day. I'll wake up and just come in here to the studio and go, this is my job for the next 8 hours, and just broadcast. For $750,000? For $750,000, we'll have digital curriculum available to everyone. We'll do book giveaways. We'll be broadcasting on every platform that we can possibly find. $750,000, I'll create the Theology Central radio station. We'll broadcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Okay. I'll work with other ministries to see if I can use their content. We'll create a radio station. $750,000. This is what they say. Now remember, they need the support so that they can continue to share the message of faith, because they don't have enough money to share the message of faith. And it costs so much to, broadcast on the internet, I guess. All right. So it says we have a goal of $750,000, and your donation will make a significant impact on our ability to reach hearts and change lives. Your participation in this mission can help bring Jesus' hope to many. Your gift will be matched dollar for dollar, effectively increasing the impact we can make. If you're not able to donate this time, that's okay. Your previous support is much appreciated, and you can contribute in the future if you wish. But if you're willing and able to donate, you can help us reach our goal to make a difference today. Consider donating. Together, let's shine the light of God's love into the darkest corners of our world. Thanks again for all you do. Gratefully, Dr. Robert Jeffress. Pathway to Victory, Dallas, Texas. $750,000. Look, I struggle with that. I'm just going to be full transparency. I have a hard time with that. I really do. I get these emails from these ministries almost weekly that we need $1 million. We need $500,000. We need $750,000. We need $800,000. It's never like, hey, we just need $100. No, we need hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And the thing is, thousands of Christians will give them the money. They will raise the money. They will reach their goal. And then within 12 months, probably within 6 months, I guarantee you, from this ministry, from the Pathway to Victory, it is July. I will get another email within the next 4 to 5 months. I guarantee you. I'll get one probably around Thanksgiving, and I'll get another one around Christmas, and then maybe one last one. I'll probably get 3 before the year is over, all asking for crazy amounts of money. And they will get the money. So you just have to sit there and ask, I don't get it. Go listen to Pathway to Victory. You go listen to it. And I mean this without sarcasm. You look up Pathway to Victory, find their website, find all of their content. You go listen to their messages, and you may go, well, I can see why they're asking for $750,000. He's one of the best speakers I've ever heard in my life. I would give him $100,000 just myself, because he deserves it. And that's fine. But I listen and I'm like, that's worth $750,000 for less than 30 minutes of an edited sermon. I just don't understand that. Where I know $750,000, I could broadcast for 50 years for $750,000. I just don't get it. But so that's what's going on. So that's already irritating. And you can make, I don't know what your feelings are about it. It's always interesting. I think some people in the pew think, well, what's the problem? These ministries need support. And I understand that. From my perspective, it's just like, well, yeah, we all need support. All ministries need support. But for that much money? I know how much it costs to broadcast on the internet. I know. Look at all the things we had to cut, right? We used to offer digital curriculum. We could not get enough support. We had to get rid of it. We used to broadcast on numerous platforms. We had to cut some of them because we cannot raise enough support, right? So we even talked about the end of 2023, maybe just ending everything because it's hard to get support. So I understand that every ministry needs money, but I have never asked for $750,000. Okay. I mean, I mean, come on. I mean, 750? I mean, yeah. Okay. All right. But I digress. You can make your own determination. But we're here about another email. See, that's one email, but we're here because of another email. I received an email. Let me go back to the date on this one. I received an email on July the 2nd at 7:38 p.m. And someone sent me an email saying, hey, I'm participating in your live webcast challenge. That's always encouraging. And they told me they were listening to something, and the person made some statement about God and his presence in hell. And the emailer was kind of like, so did I hear this right? Basically, how do I understand this? Could you review this? It's very short. Could you let me know if I'm, what is the correct way to understand this? And so I greatly appreciated, obviously, first the person participating. I greatly appreciate the person asking the question, and we're going to do our very best to try to figure this out. Now, logic and wisdom would dictate that I go listen to it first, then I, gather all of my thoughts, and then I email the person back. But I don't necessarily like to do that, right? Because if I have to go watch something, if I have to go listen to something, why do I go watch and listen to it in private? Why not just watch and listen to it with everyone else, and then we try to figure out the answer together? Now, to me, that's more fun. That makes this podcast much more organic. It makes it much more real. And I like that. But it also means I'm going in blind. Now, the thing that could happen is I could listen to this and then I could be like, I don't understand the problem, which that would be then that could offend the original emailer. So I know there's always a danger here. Or I may go, oh, wait, you missed the real problem. Okay, that's not the problem. So I may hear something completely different. So to the original email, or however I respond, it's not about you. It's about I'm going to be responding to whatever I hear. Okay. And we're going to do our best to try to figure this out. But I think before we listen to this, we do need at least now I could be making a mistake here, but since this seems to be a discussion possibly that we're going to listen to, dealing with hell and God and maybe the presence of God in hell and how all of this works, I think we need to start with kind of just maybe some definitions of hell, or at least some basic points and things to consider when we discuss hell. Because obviously the doctrine of hell is not a pleasant doctrine. I think we can all agree with that. I mean, it's a horrible concept from a human perspective. From a God perspective, it's going to be completely different. But from a human perspective, you have to kind of understand the way this looks, all right? From a human perspective, there's a God who's all-knowing, all-powerful, knew exactly what was going to happen when he created the world. But at the same time, he knew that when he created the world, that there's going to be all these people who don't do, quote unquote, the right thing, and they end up then burning for eternity. That's hard to wrap your mind around. It's a very uncomfortable doctrine, right? Now, many Christians almost relish in it, right? Oh, you don't believe the right thing? Well, you're going to be sorry. Almost like, I don't know why we'd ever talk that way, but trust me, Christians do. And I can't stand it because the concept of hell should bother you like, in fact, sometimes I struggle with it because there's been times in my Christian life, I'm just going to be honest with you. I almost reached the point a couple of times I felt like I was going to have a nervous breakdown. Like I literally thought emotionally I was not going to be able to handle it, because the thought that I'm sitting here and then there's human beings who died and they're burning for eternity, that's very difficult for me to comprehend. Right. And so then it's like almost like living with this like reality that people are burning. People are burning. And at the same time, from a theological perspective, some people say, well, that should motivate you to evangelize. Well, I can evangelize all day. If you believe in a free will worldview, I can only evangelize, but their will has to decide. It's not my job to manipulate their will because I want them to exercise their free will. Any force upon their free will or manipulation upon their free will is not respecting their free will. So if I truly believe in free will, then I'm not going to do anything to manipulate or do that. Even though many churches who believe in free will are the very ones who manipulate and use every psychological trick in the book to try to get someone to say a prayer. I can't stand that, right? So that's not truly respecting the doctrine of free will. If someone has to make a free will decision, then you don't manipulate or do anything to force. All you can do is simply present. And if you believe in a Calvinistic soteriology, well, then all you can do is present, and then God has to do the work. And either way, you're limited in what you can do. So that's it's just a very difficult concept. But I think that we have when we talk about hell, I think there's certain ways we describe it, right? Some refer to hell as a place of punishment for the unrighteous. In many biblical passages, hell is depicted as a place of punishment for those who have rejected salvation and lived without righteousness. It describes a place of torment, suffering, and now listen to this phrase, separation from God. Separation from God. Now that's a phrase that shows up frequently. When we speak of hell, we speak of a Christless or godless eternity where you are separated from God for all eternity, which would seem to indicate, well, God is not there. God is not present. Is that a theologically sound way to describe it? Is God present in hell or is he not present? Another way of describing it is eternal consequence. The Bible often portrays hell as an eternal destination for the unrepentant where individuals face the consequences of their actions for all eternity. It is described as a place of eternal punishment where there is no escape or relief, okay? That doesn't use the separation from God concept, but all right, we definitely have a place of punishment and a place of eternity. Fire and darkness. Hell sometimes is depicted as a place of fiery torment or outer darkness, symbolizing the intense suffering and separation from God. There's the phrase again, separation from God that awaits the ungodly. These images convey the severity of the punishment and those who reject God's grace. So there twice now, just in two, like trying to look at different ways hell is described, 2 different times now, the phrase separation from God. Separation from God, separation from God. In hell, you are separated from God. In hell, you are in a Christless, godless eternity. You are separated from God forever. So is God there? If God's there, then am I separated from him? What do we mean by that? All right. Another one. Hell is often associated with the final judgment of all humanity, where God will separate the righteous from the unrighteous. Those consigned to hell will face God's judgment for their sins and will be held accountable for the rejection of God's offer of salvation. Now, please note they will face God's judgment. Now, is that God putting you there for the judgment, or is God present in some way, pouring out his judgment and wrath upon you? So is it God just puts you there, but he's separated from it, or is God present somehow? Is some aspect of God present? These are maybe theological questions you've never considered before. That's why I love getting emails, because emails may take me down a path that I had not even considered. All right, but now listen to this one. They describe hell as the absence of God's presence. One common aspect of hell in the Bible is the absence of God's presence and grace. Those in hell are separated from God, experiencing the full weight of their rebellion and sin without hope of reconciliation. So over and over and over, when you look up definitions of hell or descriptions of hell, no matter what theological book you may be looking in or Bible study book, they're constantly going to refer to hell as the absence of God's presence or separated from God. So if we describe hell as the absence of God's presence or the separation from God, then can we say God is in hell? Or maybe we should stop describing hell as the absence of God's presence and we have to be more specific. We have to be more careful in our language. We talked about this in a recent broadcast about the importance of theological language. Is hell a place of separation from God, or is hell a place where you're separated from God's mercy and grace, but you experience the presence of God in his wrath and condemnation. How do we understand this? Now, supposedly, what the clip that was, the link that was provided in the email is going to take me to a audio clip that's about this very subject. And this aired on the Sermons 2.0 app as a live webcast. It is called In the Judgment by Dr. Stephen J. Lawson. All right? In the Judgment, Dr. Stephen J. Lawson, they broadcast early in the morning, like 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, I think is when their live webcast comes on the air on the Sermons 2.0 app. Sometimes I catch it. Most of the times I probably miss it because when at that time I'm usually trying to get focused on what I'm going to be doing for the day. But yeah, if you are ever up early, you can check them out. But look, we're going to listen to this. It's only like 13 minutes long, so it should go by relatively quick. Let's see what we learn. Let's see what we can. I don't know where this is going to go. So the question really is, how should we describe hell? Is it a place where God is not present and you're separated forever from the presence of God? Or is God present in some way, shape, or form? Because on one hand, God is omnipresent. He is present everywhere at all times. So can he not be present? If he's not present in hell, would that call into question his omnipresence? If there's a place God is not present, then he's not omnipresent. Ooh, that's a good theological question, right? So you ready? Let's see if we can figure this out. And we're going to listen and we're going to start right now.
Welcome to Steadfast Hope. I'm Steve Lawson, joined as always by Kent Stainback. And
my contract's running out.
No, it's a lifetime contract.
No lifetime.
You haven't read the small print.
The contract.
You signed it. We've got you for life now. Okay. We've thought about working out a trade with another team.
I'll see you in court.
But no, you're stuck with us. We're stuck with you. So we're at her.
Okay, maybe they're getting ready to explain where they are. There's like all kinds of people talking in the background. I don't know. Their microphones are all weird. Okay, I didn't see the video of this. I'm going to back that up a little bit because I think he's getting ready to explain where they are. Maybe it will explain what's going on. All right, so that's the first thing I caught on is what's going on with their microphones and why is there all these people talking in the background? Where are they broadcasting from? All right, so let's see if we can find out.
Oh, you're stuck with us. We're stuck with you. So we're at Herb's House Coffee Shop, Dallas, Texas, and we're in Psalm 1, Ken.
Oh, they're in a coffee house? I wonder if it's like one of those like ministry-related coffee houses where the ministry puts together a coffee house, so then it's like a business, but then they make it tax exempt. Okay, we can get into all the legalities of all of that. Okay, but I don't know if it is, but I don't know. Maybe it's a cool setting. I don't know if I would want to do a podcast in a coffee shop. Would I? I guess it would be kind of cool. It would be kind of cool, I guess, right? I think maybe, I don't know. I would be too distracted, I think. I'd be telling everybody, hey, be quiet. I'm trying to broadcast here. Okay. Right? So I don't know. Or people in the coffee house would be like, boo, you stink. Go away. You're trash. You're a dumpster fire. Get out of my face. Okay. Like I probably wouldn't get heckled by the crowd. And then I would not respond to being heckled in a very godly manner. So then I'd be yelling back at them, you're trash. And then you'd be like, wow, this is such a great podcast. What a theological podcast. This guy has got major problems. And well, I'll be the first to admit that I do. All right. Let's see what's going on. All right. So we're in a coffee house, Dallas, Texas. See the first email that I read today from Dallas, Texas. Dallas is the theme today, ladies and gentlemen. Dallas is the theme. No, to be honest, Dallas, there are so many ministries in Dallas, Texas. I mean, this part of the country. I mean, like I always the joke if you're in the military and you get stationed at Dyess Air Force Base and you go to the newcomers briefing where you get your briefings about welcome to Dyess Air Force Base, welcome to the Abilene, Texas area, and then you get all the things about the base and about the community. They'll say Abilene, Texas, the town where there's a church on every street corner, right? And of course, then the young airmen are like, wait, I got stationed on a base that has churches on every street corner. Is there anything else to do in this town other than go to church? Okay. Usually they're very, very disappointed and discouraged that the military sent them to a place where there's a church on every street corner. But that's this part of the country. That's just the way it is. And some of you live in other parts of the country that are very similar. Okay. But I do know this. I can live in a city with 3 Christian universities. I can live in a city where there's a church on every street corner. And guess what? There's just as much sin here as it is anywhere else because we're still sinners. Okay, all right, I digress. All right, are you ready? Let's see where this is going to go.
And we're in verse 5. And Kent, I wish we weren't having to talk about what we're going to look at in this verse, but we have to. And we need the whole truth. And verse 5, I want to call this in the judgment. And I think most people today just live their life without any thought of that last day, of the final judgment. For them, they think the last day is their last day here on the earth. In a hospital bed, and then they die. In their home, and then they die.
And go to a better place.
And that's it. And they never think about the fact that the last day is beyond the last day here. That the last day is a day of reckoning, a day of accounting with God and standing before Him and having Him go through the books and having Him sorted out. And He's been keeping impeccable books, every thought, every word, every deed. And we'll face the record. And so he says in verse 5,
just so you know, as a Christian, we'll face the record, but the record, whatever record that is there that would bring shame or would condemn us, we have Christ's righteousness that takes care of all of that record because His obedience and His righteousness and His perfection has been imputed to our account by faith alone. All right. Now, we could talk about a judgment of believers and the loss of reward and what that means and doesn't mean. We could get into that discussion. Just remember, even if you open the books and as a Christian, you stand there and there is nothing, like all your works burn up, you are still saved because you are not saved by your works. You're saved by the works of Christ. All right. So that's very important to remember. Okay. So let's see how we're going to get from Psalm 1:5 to, well, it's about in the judgment. So obviously, then hell is going to come up here. This is where this is going to go. Let's see, then we're going to listen. We're listening for the concept of God's presence in hell and if they're going to expand or articulate exactly what they're referring to.
Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. And so, Kent, this is saying these wicked, the wicked who are like the chaff driven by the wind in verse 4, it says there is a judgment. It says will not stand in the judgment. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean that they will not appear in the judgment. Oh, they will appear. It means they will not stand with God's approval. And they will not stand with His acceptance. They will be driven like the chaff and blown away from the judgment into an eternity of torment and destruction. And so verse 5 has to be understood in light of verse 4. That you will not remain in the judgment. You will be sentenced, and you will be executed, and you will be taken away. And he says, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. What that means is there will be a separation. This wicked person is in the assembly of the righteous. He's in the worship service. He's in a believing family. He is surrounded by other believers. And so he's in the assembly of the righteous until that last day here on earth. And then he will be removed. And then even in the judgment, there will be a separation of an unbelieving husband from a believing wife. There will be a separation of believing grandparents from unbelieving grandchildren. And so the wicked will not stand or remain in the assembly of the righteous.
Okay, now when I hear this, if I was sitting in church and I was listening to a sermon that was saying these kinds of things, what I would want to do is right before the sermon ended, I would want to get up and go run out to the parking lot real quick and be waiting. You know why I always tell everyone that you need to walk around the church asking the people you go to church with questions, right? See, if I went to church with you, you would get so irritated. You'd be like, oh no, kids, hurry, get to the car. Here comes that strange man who's going to ask us weird theological questions. But I love asking people who attend church questions because sometimes it's very interesting to know what the people in the pew actually think. When people in the pew hear this idea that, hey, in the end, there's going to be a separation between the wicked and the righteous, between the wicked and the righteous. Okay, explain to me what is the difference between the wicked and the righteous. Go. What is that difference between the wicked and the righteous and that final, when they're separated in the end, why is some referred to wicked? Why is some referred to righteous? What is the difference? Many will focus on their behavior. Well, the wicked did ungodly things. Well, the righteous, we don't do those ungodly things. And the minute I hear people describe it that way, I just want to start yelling and screaming and going, you miss the entire point. Why they are called wicked is because they stand in their own righteousness. They are called wicked because man in their righteousness is wickedness before a holy God. As no matter how righteous you are, you're going to be considered wicked when you compare that righteousness to the holiness of God. Those are called righteous because they don't stand in their righteousness. They stand in the righteousness of Christ that's been imputed to them. The dividing point between the wicked and the righteous is that you have individuals who either stand in their own righteousness or they stand in the righteousness of Christ. To stand in your own righteousness makes you wicked. To stand in the righteousness of Christ makes you righteous. The difference is imputed righteousness, not the actions of your life. That's the dividing point. That's the division. Most Christians say, no, they're wicked because they do bad things, and we're righteous because we do good things. You got to be out of your ever-living mind to think that way. You take all the good that you can do, you're still unrighteous. I'm sorry to tell you, you're wicked. You say, no, but I don't do this. Well, congratulations, you don't do this, but you do this and this and this and this and this. And you don't love God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. And you're not as holy as he is holy. You are wicked. I know you don't want to hear that this morning, but you are. Now, you can be declared to be righteous by faith, not based off what you do.
I mean, they are together right now. They may be holding the same hymnal right now. They may be attending the same sporting events right now to watch their children play. But there's coming this time of polarization, this separation of one from the other. And Jesus talked about that in Matthew 25 at his second coming. One will be taken, the other will be left. And so, Kent, this is sobering, but it adds an element of gravitas, of gravity, of weightiness to our Christian lives that we need to have, and it's a part of fostering the fear of the Lord that we need, and it causes us to treasure what it is to know the Lord.
Okay, we got so much going on here. In Matthew 25, he says some will be taken, some will be left behind, and Christ's second coming. Now, I would put forth, now he does not give me a reference here. He does not give me a reference here. So you're going to have to bear with me here, right? Because we may have, ladies and gentlemen, a hermeneutical challenge just being handed to us, all right? We may have a hermeneutical challenge that was just presented to us, all right? Hang on. Okay, 25. Okay, maybe 25 will work. Okay, 25 may work. Yeah, okay. Because 24, a large portion of 24 has to be understood to be referencing to 70 AD. 25, it moves on. All right, so I thought maybe possibly 25 still had a connection to 24, but it looks like, so we don't have a hermeneutical challenge here. I think we're good to go here. All right, we're good to go here. Yeah, I think 25 we definitely could put forth towards the second coming, I think. All right, so I think we're good to go. All right, I thought possibly it was a phrase that would have something more to do with 70 AD. So we're in good shape there. All right, secondly, all right. So the second, so that the first challenge, we don't have a challenge. I thought maybe we had one, but that's okay. All right, we don't. Second challenge, I will look at it later just to make sure, but I don't think we have the challenge that I thought was being presented. Second challenge, what produces the fear of the Lord? Does the concept of God judging the wicked being brought down to hell, does that produce the fear of the Lord? What true, like as Christians, we've talked about in our look at Proverbs, and we still need to get back to doing some work in Proverbs. That's one of the things we've been trying to work on this summer. I know we've always got so much going on, but all right. But one of the things we talked about is the fear of the Lord. What produces it? So if you're like, God puts people in hell, therefore I should fear him. Because the fear of the Lord is something a believer has. Well, I'm not worried about hell if I'm a believer because I know that I am eternally secure from that. So what is the thing that should produce the fear of the Lord? Because what should bring about reverence and awe? Is it the idea of judgment, or is it the idea of grace? Is it the idea of God's grace and mercy and saving a sinner and declaring a sinner to be righteous even though he's not? Should that bring a greater sense of reverence and respect and fear, the right kind of fear? To me, hell brings the wrong kind of fear. Or what do you think? What is the thing that motivates a proper reverence and respect from God? I think that's a good theological question. They're kind of putting forth that judgment is what produces it. The fear of judgment, I don't know. The fear of judgment just means I don't want to be punished. What gave you the greater sense of reverence and respect for your parents? Fear of being punished, or was it something else? Now, I may not be the right person to answer that question, right? Because of my background, I don't think I could answer that question. So maybe you can. If you grew up in a home where you had great reverence and respect for your parents, was it their punishment that produced that in you, or was it something else? That's a legitimate question. I'm not even being sarcastic, because I legitimately cannot answer that question, because I would have no way to be able to even engage in that conversation. So you can tell me, but we're still waiting to get to the question here that we're waiting, or the point we're looking for. All right, so let's see if we can find it.
And to be in the assembly of the righteous, but to know the Lord who we are worshiping and sitting under his word. How valuable that is, because there are many who hear the word, but are not doers of the word. Okay,
this to me is the most troubling part. See, the most troubling part here is, to me, is probably not even going to be the question about hell and God's presence. This is the more troubling part. He's drawing a distinction between the wicked and the righteous is based off what they do and don't do. That is ridiculous. The separation between the wicked and the righteous is because of an imputed righteousness, not based off of practical righteousness. Because if you're going to separate the wicked from the righteous based off our actions, then everyone's going to be in the wicked category and everyone's going to hell. The ones that are declared to be righteous by faith. Like, that's the whole point of the gospel.
And so, first and foremost, doing the word would be to believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. So, Kent, let's talk about this.
Well, this is sobering. And again, I think we've been talking about this. It's very simple, isn't it? There's judgment coming.
Yeah.
And there's hell. And there's a heaven and a hell. And
absolutely.
Payment for sin. And when you look at this verse 5, could you say, therefore the wicked will not withstand the judgment?
That's another way to put it.
They will not withstand God's judgment because of their sin. One sin sends them to hell.
There's no covering over their sin.
And this wicked is could be just a great person. It's just one sin.
Just one sin is enough to really condemn a sinner. If there's just one sin, you're a sinner.
And then,
okay, that's good. That's good. If there's just one sin, you're a sinner. But I'm gonna back that up a little bit. We don't even have to commit a sin. We're guilty in Adam. And even before we commit the act, we're a sinner by nature. So we are a sinner before we commit an act. We're guilty in Adam, and we're a sinner by nature. All right. But and he says one sin, you're a sinner. Okay. Well, I say you're a sinner before you commit that. I don't think you become a sinner because I may have a problem with this. You're not a sinner because you commit one sin. You commit one sin because you are a sinner. A sinner is what you are. Sin is what you do. You don't become a sinner by what you do. You do because of what you are. Right? You don't become what you are by what you do. You do because of what you are. We sin because of what we are. This seems to have that's almost I know he would not be a Pelagian in any way, shape, or form. No, you commit the sin because you are a sinner. You don't become a sinner by committing sin. You're a sinner. You commit sin because you are a sinner. Like that's theologically they're speaking it backwards. But even if you go with it's almost a Pelagian understanding, well, you're a sinner if you commit a sin. No, you commit a sin because you are a sinner. But even if we throw out what I believe is a more proper understanding of sin, even if you go with his view, okay, if you commit one sin, you're a sinner. Oh, I can't even say it that way. You commit one sin, you're a sinner. No, that's going to drive me to drinking. Okay, no, you commit one sin because you are a sinner, right? Let's just make sure we can't back that up. But even if you go with their way of stating it, which I would never state it that way, even if you go with their way, well, then okay. The distinction between the wicked and the righteous isn't because one commits one sin and one doesn't commit one sin. The difference between the wicked and the righteous is not because one does the word and one doesn't do the word. The difference is because the righteous are righteous by faith because of an imputed righteousness.
And then this word sinners and wicked, is that synonymous?
Yeah, it's parallelism. The wicked refers to their nature, what they are on the inside. Okay. Sinner refers to the choices that they make.
So these are unforgiven sinners.
Yeah.
Without Christ.
Absolutely.
And it's a double whammy there.
Yeah. I mean, there's no escaping this.
So, Steve, why doesn't everybody, with this looming judgment of heaven and hell, why aren't people more concerned? Why does it water off the duck's back by so many of our loved ones, people we know, people that come to church all the time? We sit there and pray in the elders meetings for my so-and-so's coming, they're not saved, they think they are.
Yeah.
Why don't people wake up? What's the issue?
I think it begins with there's so very little preaching on judgment, so little preaching on hell, so little preaching on really that last day when the books will be open and the book of life will be open. There's just no preaching on it today, even in Bible preaching churches. I mean, how little we hear about it. Let me remind us of this, Kent. Jesus had more to say about hell than he did about heaven.
Wow.
Now, just
big.
ponder that.
That's big.
Jesus had more to say about hell than anyone else in the Bible. So just those two sentences, just those two statements should awaken us to the fact that we need to be preaching on this and teaching on this and thinking about this and measuring our lives by this.
Yeah.
That's number one. And I think number two, people just don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. Even when I preach on hell, even people who are close to me will say, did you really have to, preach on this? Almost like I just ruined Sunday.
Now, that is an interesting point. I know this to be somewhat true from what I witnessed. Okay, I'll just explain it. I'll just try to tell the story. I've told the story many times, but it fits perfectly. So, as many of you know, Christian radio played a massive part of my Christian life, right? Because when I became a Christian, I realized that there's a thing called Christian radio stations. Now, the first one I ever discovered was before I became a Christian. It was music, just a little preaching. But then I realized that there were other stations that had more like, actual teaching. So I've told the story before that, after I became a Christian, I bought 3 notebooks because there were 3 programs that came on every day on Christian radio, right? There was John MacArthur, there was Chuck Swindoll, and there was Chuck Smith. Right? So I had a MacArthur notebook, a Swindoll notebook, and a Chuck Smith notebook. I always make the joke that the Chuck Smith notebook, I never wrote anything in it because his preaching bored me absolutely to death. He seemed like he had I got nothing from it. Swindoll taught me all about application. MacArthur taught me all about exposition, expounding the word. All right. Now, of course, I was also being, very much taught lordship salvation from MacArthur, but, we can get into all that discussion. So Christian radio played a big part in my life. So when I joined the United States military and ended up in Omaha, Nebraska, I immediately looked for the Christian radio stations, all right? One was Family Radio, which actually broadcasted out of Iowa, but we could pick it up in Omaha, and that was Harold Camping. I became a student of, of Harold Camping School, and we know all the craziness that went down with Harold Camping. 1994 predicted the end of the world. Okay, all the crazy stuff that went down there. Okay, but I did attend a school. Okay, right. So, all right. Then there was, I think it was KGBI. Okay, it was something like you always wanted the KGB. You always wanted to connect it to Russia, but I think it was like KGBI, something along those lines. And it was a part of Grace University. It was on campus of Grace University, where I was a student at Grace University. So I knew that radio station really well, and they played lots of teaching programs. All right, so one of the teaching programs they had on there was Charles Stanley In Touch. Well, at that time, In Touch, what you could do is you could contact In Touch, and they would send you their monthly devotional magazine for free. I loved that, the fact that they did that. So I had the magazine, and the magazine corresponded with the radio program, right? So there was a day coming up. I'm like, ooh, it's going to be on the doctrine of hell. All right. I got my notebook. I got my In Touch devotional guide. I'm ready for the program to begin on radio. I know. Back before you could just listen to anything on the internet. Okay. So you had to be there at a specific time. I'm ready to go. What in the world? It was a sermon on something completely different. So I contacted the radio station. Like, well, we made the decision. We didn't necessarily want to broadcast that. We felt it was a little too heavy. It was too negative. And I'm like, so a Christian radio station did not want to broadcast a message on hell on their radio station because it was too negative? That was in the 1990s, ladies and gentlemen. So there is some truth to what they're saying, that many in the church don't want to hear about the doctrine of hell. and people don't like it. And I look, on one hand, I understand why nobody likes it. Okay. Look, but if we're going to start getting rid of, we're going to start getting rid of doctrines or things that we don't like, get in line. I've got a list of things I want to get rid of. All right. Okay. So that is fascinating that he thinks that's the issue. We still haven't gotten to the question at hand. We'll see. It's got to be getting close. Let's see.
Or I just ruined our gathering together. As if I just poured cold water on a hot fire and put out our joy and our peace. We want the good, but we don't want the rest of the story. And so books like How to Have Your Best Life Now, it just totally cuts us off from the reality that there is looming on the horizon an inescapable appointment that every man has with judgment.
You know, I think of two things real quick. I know we're out of time. This reminds me so much of, I think it's Matthew. It's in the days of Noah. Mm-hmm. Nobody had ever, just because you've never seen it before, nobody had ever seen the flood.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what, if we've never seen it.
It's a good thought, good picture.
We've never seen it, then we don't believe it.
Yeah. Here's this man building an ark in the middle of the desert.
Yeah. He's the only one.
And he's miles and miles away from any body of water.
But when the flood of judgment came, they believed it. So, Steve, finish up with this. Where does hell come from? Who is in control of hell? Why is hell there?
Yeah, Matthew 25:41 says that God created hell for the devil and his angels. But it's also the final destination of every unbeliever.
Now, okay, Matthew 25:41 does say, Matthew 25:41. Then he will also say to those on the left hand, depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Now, a lot of people read that as to say hell was only created for Satan and the fallen angels. That's all it was created for. God never intended for anyone to go to hell. That, when I hear preachers say that, I sometimes, and I'm not saying that's what he's saying, but I always just shake my head. I'm like, so the all-knowing God created a place called hell, but he never intended anyone else to go there? Before he created it, he knew who was going to be there. What do you mean? Like, I'm going to create this only for Satan and the fallen angels. That's it. Well, then why not put them there immediately when they fell? The second Satan and the angels rebelled, put them in hell. End of story. They cannot touch God's creation. If he doesn't want anyone else to go to hell, then don't allow Satan to bring sin into the world, corrupt humankind so that they're all born sinners, already destined for hell. To say that God never intended anyone to go to hell is ridiculous, because before he created the world, he knew exactly every single person who would be in hell. You can't be like, oh, I didn't intend for, another one went to hell. I didn't intend to, I didn't, oh man, I didn't intend to, oh man, so many people keep going there and I didn't intend any of this. There's like 1 million there now and I didn't intend one. Now there's 2 million. Oh man, how can I fix this problem? I can't stand that. That's just saying that it was made for the Satan and the angels. I don't think that that's a statement indicating that it wasn't made for anyone else or anything else. I think it's just saying, hey, you're going to go to the place that was designed also for these individuals, meaning this is a place of severe judgment because even Satan and the angels are destined for this place. So now I'm not saying that's what he's saying, but so many preachers state it that way. It was never intended for people. God built something and it's doing something he never intended it to do, because God lost complete control of the plot, of the narrative. That just puts God seemingly confused and a failure. And I don't think that's the way it's understood. Now, this raises lots of deep philosophical questions that are problematic. Why would God create people knowing they're going to go to hell? And especially then you can't say he never intended them to go if he knew they were going to go and he didn't do anything to prevent them from going. And he said, well, he did do something to prevent them from going. He sent his son, but he knows those before they're created that they're not going to believe. So why then even let them be born? Well, there's just so many, we get into never ending philosophical issues here. All right. But maybe we're going to get closer now to the question that I received in the email.
God is so holy that no sinner can enter into God's presence. They cannot enter in his presence. They cannot remain in his presence. Satan was once an angel in heaven, and sin was found in him, pride, and he was cast out of heaven. And so hell is the repository for every one who is a sinner and who has sinned and has no forgiveness of their sins. And a holy God has created hell. Yeah. A flawlessly perfect God has created hell. So there's no apology here.
God's punishing. God's the one inflicting the punishment.
Okay, God created hell. That I'm glad that they're stating that. No, people may not like it, but he created it, all right? Now, I'm going to back this up a little bit because I think this is where the listener heard this and got, well, I'm not saying confused, but definitely their questions arose. I'm going to back this up a little bit. Here we go.
God's the one inflicting the punishment.
God is the one inflicting the punishment. It's not a place of mutilization, self-inflicted pain, and the devil is not the Lord of hell.
Wow.
No, we know from Revelation 14, verses 9 and 10, that even Christ, by his Spirit, will be in hell and be the executor of his wrath and judgment forever and ever and ever. And you would only hope that God is not in hell, inflicting this wrath. But he is. He's omnipresent. There's no place where God's Spirit does not dwell, whether in heaven, on earth, or under the earth in hell. And so it's a horrible place. It's a place of torment. And you should fear the one who has power to cast into hell. And so that would be true of your life if you're not a believer in Jesus Christ. What do you have to do to go to hell? The answer is nothing. If you're not a Christian, you're already headed there. Just continue to live the life you're living and do not respond to the free offer of the gospel in Jesus Christ. And that's where this river of sin is flowing and will take you into the pit of hell itself. And so someone needs to tell you the truth. Someone needs to look you square in the eyes and tell you you're headed to hell if you do not believe in God's Son, Jesus Christ. And so may God have mercy upon you, and he will have mercy upon the one who repents of his sin and turns to Jesus Christ and believes in him. May God do this in your life if you're listening to this and you are without Christ. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Blessings to you, but they're all in Christ.
Okay, now, so this brought up the question, is God in hell? Is God in hell? And what they're stating is, and I've already alluded to it, this is the basic concept. God is omnipresent. So he has to be present in some way, shape, or form. If he's not in hell in some capacity, then God is not omnipresent. Well, then you're destroying one of the major attributes of God. He is present everywhere. No matter where you go, he's there. But his presence in hell is only there in his presence is there to inflict wrath and condemnation. He is pouring out his wrath upon those who are there. Think of it this way. At the cross, God poured out his wrath on Christ, and Christ propitiated that wrath for all those who believe. So for all those who believe, Jesus drank the full cup of God's wrath for me. There is no wrath left for me. I don't fear God's wrath. I don't fear his condemnation. It's all been taken care of me in Christ, and then Christ imputed his perfect righteousness and holiness to me. All right. But for those in hell, Christ did that wrath has not been propitiated for them. I don't want to get into particular redemption and get into a whole discussion about that, but we can have a theological discussion there, which would be controversial, but we won't get into that right now. But we'll just state it this way. In hell, the wrath of God is manifest. It's present. So God is there in a sense. His presence is there because he's omnipresent, but it's his presence of wrath, of condemnation. He's not there suffering. He's there inflicting. He is, in a sense, he is Lord over that which he has created. He created hell, and his presence is there, not one of love or mercy. It's the presence of wrath and condemnation because he's omnipresent. That is how we understand it. I think that's that's what they're trying to say. Now, they only had, 15 minutes max. So obviously they could not get into great detail about that, but that's where they were going. I know it can sound confusing because on one hand we're saying hell is the separation of us from God. Hell is a Christless eternity. Well, to be fair, hell is where you experience the presence of God's wrath and condemnation upon you. You are separated from God's love. You're separated from God's mercy. You're separated from a relationship with God, but you are very much facing the presence of God in his wrath and condemnation. I think that's a better way to explain it. So there is a separation from God, but you're not separated from his presence as far as his wrath and condemnation is concerned. I hope that makes sense. It may be a little confusing. Just remember, he's omnipresent. He's got to be present everywhere at all times. He has to be, or he's not omnipresent. If there's a place he's not at, he's not omnipresent. So he has to be present. Now, so then what does that mean? Well, he's not obviously there to save or to give mercy or grace. He is there to pour out wrath and condemnation. Hell is a place where you experience the wrath of God for all eternity. Because you have not put your faith in Jesus Christ, because if you put your faith in Jesus Christ, then you're in God's presence in heaven without the wrath of God, because it's all been satisfied in Christ. I hope that helps. I know it can be a little confusing, especially considering, and this is why in preaching, we have to be very precise in our language, because we say something, the people in the pew pick up on it. Oh, hell is the absence of God's presence. It's the separation from God. And then you hear on something else, you're like, wait a minute. It seems to contradict what you said. That's why we got to be precise in our theological language, or it leads to theological confusion. Now, I'm not always precise in my language. And they're just trying to explain his omnipresence in regards to hell. So, all right. There's some other things there that would bother me a little bit. It sounds like they kind of clarified a little bit of what I was concerned with, but they still didn't draw that proper distinction between the wicked and the righteous. But all right. And again, I'm going to be very precise here. You do not become a sinner by committing a sin. You commit one sin because you are a sinner. Don't ever forget that. All right. You don't start off not a sinner. Right? I'll never forget my argument I had sitting in a parking lot with one of my friends at that time. I was Lutheran. He was Baptist. Right? I used to be Baptist. I used to go to that church with him when I was a teenager, but I had moved on to become a Lutheran because, well, the Baptist wouldn't, to me, deal with any theological issues. So I became a Lutheran. So we're sitting in the parking lot. We're having an argument, right? So he learned this from his pastor, and I learned the same thing from his pastor. He took out a sheet of paper from his notebook. Let me grab one here. I'm just going to tear one out, right? So he tore out a sheet of paper from his notebook, right? He held it up. You see this paper? It's clean. It's not marked up. It's nice, complete piece of paper. And he said, that is how we are born. And then we come along and we mess it all up. And I'm like, your whole understanding of humanity is completely wrong, man. We're not born like that clean piece of paper. We're born like that crumbled up piece of paper. We're born a sinner. We're born messed up. You're giving me Pelagianism. You're giving me semi-Pelagian. He had no clue what those things were. I'm like, your pastor's teaching you Pelagianism. You're not born without sin. You're born a sinner. That is what you are. You are a sinner by nature. You're a sinner. That's who you are. And therefore your sin is a reflection of who you are. You did not become a sinner by sinning. You sinned because you were a sinner. He completely rejected it outright and said it was wrong and didn't agree with it. And I'm like, okay, well, then go run off with your Pelagianism. But I'm not a Pelagian. I reject Pelagianism, semi-Pelagianism, and you should too, because your whole understanding of man is wrong. We don't become sinners by sinning. We sin because we're sinners. And when they made that kind of comment that you become a sinner by committing one sin, that's just completely theologically in error. I don't think they actually meant that. I think that they misspoke. I know Lawson is not he rejects Pelagianism and semi-Pelagianism. So I think he just misspoke. I know there's just no way. So that jumped out more to me than the other, but hopefully that answered the question. All right. That was 69 minutes to answer one simple question. See, that's why you always get the long answer with me. All right. newsif@yahoo.com. newsif@yahoo.com. Everyone have a great, great day, a great holiday weekend. If it's that for you, hopefully you have a great time. Hopefully it's wonderful for you. And, remember your challenge. You're supposed to be listening to random live webcast on the Sermons 2.0 app. If you hear something, see something, email me what you're hearing, seeing, and what questions you may have, and I'll do my very best to answer this to the original emailer. I hope this was helpful. I feel like maybe I didn't do a great job, but the problem is everything else took so long to get to the actual question that by the time I got to the question, we were out of time. So, but I don't know what else I can say, but please email me follow-up questions, and I will do my very best to try to respond. Thank you for listening. Everyone have a great day. God bless.